Welcome to anybody watching this presentation right now. And as a part of this slideshow, we're gonna be talking about critical probability, which is gonna be us doing math to establish our chances of a critical hit in one of my favorite video games. Now, if you don't know what critical hits are, you have to watch out for them. Because in most video games, a critical hit is an attack that deals significantly more damage than a regular attack. And it can work differently for different games. For example, in most shooting games, if you land a shot on their head, that's usually a critical hit. But in other games, such as a turn-based fighting game, there may be a random probability of one of your attacks being a critical. And for the sake of us staying in the realms of math, we're gonna be talking about the probability as opposed to the headshots. So moving on, what are the chances, probability, my apologies, of landing a critical hit? So, probability, first of all, we have to even understand what that is. So, probability is a number that tells us the chances of something happening. For example, there's approximately a 99% chance that I'll get an F if I ended this presentation right now. But doing something that simple, that isn't mathy enough for us. So, what do we do? The answer is to make it discrete. Now, discrete probability uses the same logic as regular probability, except for the fact that discrete probability, a whole lot of tongue twisters over here, is not continuous. And what that means is, as opposed to discrete probability, regular probability has a seemingly infinite number of outcomes for an answer. However, when it's discrete, there will always be a limited set of outcomes, and the chances of all outcomes need to equal 1 to indicate that one of these outcomes will in fact happen. Moving on, the goal of this presentation is for us to calculate the discrete probability of landing a critical hit in Persona 3 Reload, one of my favorite games, my top three, not three, of all time. So you're looking at this whole little picture and you're probably wondering, what is Persona? And that's a great question. Persona is a turn-based JRPG, or Japanese role-playing game, franchise created by a video game development company named Atlus and published by Sega, the guys that made Sonic. And it was originally a spin-off of Shin Megami Tensei, or better known as SMT, which is another game franchise that was created and published by the same companies. And Persona, moving on throughout the years, has become more and more popular until today, it actually outshines and outsells its predecessor by a lot. Persona is way more popular than SMT nowadays. Now that we're done with that, we can talk about exactly how crits work in Persona 3 Reload. So, there are many different types of attacks that fall under categories of physical and magical. However, we're just disregarding everything about magical, because critical hits are only possible with physical attacks, which are divided into three separate types: slash, strike, and pierce. Now, the critical hit probability, unfortunately for us, is not shown in the game for whatever reason. So, that means it's time for us to do a little digging. Now, thanks to the internet, we can see the math behind Persona's critical hit chance. The equation for critical hit chance looks like this, with attacker luck plus 50 divided by defender luck plus 50 times the skill crit, which would equal the crit rate percentage. Now, luck is one of the many stats in this game, and it can range from 1 all the way to 99. And skill crit is a number with a value of 3 for all basic attacks. So what that means is, it's gonna always multiply by 3, basically. Now, let's say that the attacker's luck stat is 50 and the defender's luck stat is 25, and we decide to use a basic attack. So that would be 50 plus 50 divided by 25 plus 50 times 3, which would get us 300 over 75, which, factored out and all that, would give us a solid 4. This will leave us with a base critical hit rate of 4%, which isn't nearly enough to be useful, but there are plenty of ways to increase our chances. As you can see on the side, there's a little chart that shows the discrete probability. And the main way to increase our chances is by using our Actually, I'm gonna let this guy say it. Persona! Now, personas are summonable creatures that allow us to gain unique skills and benefits that make battle significantly easier. Some skills, such as Brave Blade, gives us an extra 20% critical hit chance when used. Now, be noted that this 20% is only applied when using the attack itself, and it doesn't stack when you use it more than once. Now, there's also more than that, because not only that, there are also obtainable passive skills like Crit Rate Amp that gives us another 15% increase in critical hit rate. It should be noted, though, that these skills provide flat increases, meaning that it's simply added to our percentage as opposed to being multiplied, meaning that our critical rate has already increased drastically. Another thing that you need to be aware of is that putting more than one of the same skill is not allowed, and you can only have a total of 8 skills on any single persona. So choosing the right skills are the key to victory. But there's one more thing that we need to talk about. Now, one last option to increase our probability of a critical hit is status ailments. There are 12 status ailments, 6 of which affect our chances of a critical. And they are Dizzy, Distress, Confusion, Fear, Shock, and Freeze. These status effects all provide flat increases. And looking at the table, we can see that Dizzy provides a 15% increase, Distress a 60, Confusion 20, Fear 20, Shock 35, and Freeze a whopping 100%. You get a guaranteed critical hit if you freeze your opponent.
I've been waiting for this!
Now, let's perform calculations with the same base crit chance from before, but with all the abilities that we've discovered. And for this test, we'll assume that the defender has the Dizzy status effect for calculations, meaning they're going to have an extra 20% chance of crit. And for simplicity's sake, I'll convert the percentages to decimal points. So we have 0.04 plus 0.15 plus 0.20 plus 0.15, which gives us 0.54. Now, our new odds have jumped from a measly 4% to a whopping 54%. We now have a higher chance of landing a critical than we do at winning a coin toss. Heads or tails? Nah, we win these. But we can make this value even higher. And how will we do that? By pushing the limit. Because there are plenty of skills that I've yet to even mention. And now our new goal is going to be to see how close we can get to that 100%. Now, to make this fair, we'll be excluding all status ailments. As y'all already know, freeze is 100%, so we can very easily get a crit, but it's just, we have to figure out how we would get it in the normal circumstances. And on the side note, I guess you call it a little fun fact, most bosses in Persona 3 Reload actually nullify status ailments entirely, so it makes it a non-factor during the most important times, so it really doesn't matter. Now, the setup. The first thing that we need to do is level up. The most straightforward method towards increasing our chances would be to increase our luck stat from 50 to 99. And after doing the math, this would increase our base critical chance to approximately 6%, which may seem insignificant now considering that it was only at 4 beforehand, but this will add up in the end, trust me. Now, part 2 to the setup. We need Apt Pupil. This is another passive skill that doubles our base crit chance. Now, base is a very important part of this equation, as this won't affect any of our other skills and simply double the original value before everything else is applied. So like the 20%, the 15%, that's not doubled. It's simply the 6% that we just got. So 6% times 2 would give us 12%. And as you can see, the effects are already adding up because if it was 4%, it'll only go up to 8, but now it's at 12. Now, part 3 of the setup. There are 2 more skills that we could use to raise our probability of a critical: Rebellion and Revolution. Rebellion is an applicable buff that lasts for 3 turns, and it increases our critical rate by a flat 7%. Revolution is another buff that can stack with Rebellion, increasing our crit chance by another flat 15%. But be careful, because this buff is applied to both the enemy and the player teams. So you'll want to use the skill with a lot of caution. Because I'll tell you right now, I've played this game, and if you get hit with a crit, you might as well just kiss your life goodbye. With all this information in tow, it's time for the final verdict. Now let's apply all of our buffs and calculate our odds of a critical hit. Once again, percentages will be converted to decimals for simplicity. We have 0.06 times 2 plus 0.15 plus 0.15 plus 0.07 plus 0.20. And this gives us a total of 0.69, which means our probability of getting a critical hit would be 69% with a 31% chance of getting a normal hit. And this concludes our breakdown of Persona 3 Reload's crit chance. My research is right here. Steam community, they gave me all of the numbers and the base crit chance and all that. I couldn't have done it without them. GitHub gave me the list of skills so I could know exactly what all the skills that I just, like Rebellion and Revolution, I could know exactly what all that gave us. And Investopedia is what told me what Discret was and how I was able to apply it with Persona. And lastly, but certainly not least, the contributors were me. I was the sole contributor to this PowerPoint. And I know you can hear the little music in the background, so in case you liked any of these tracks, I decided to put them at the bottom. The first track was Color Your Night, the second one was It's Going Down Now, and the third one was Brand New Days, and these were all tracks from Persona 3 Reload, the game. But yeah, that was everything. So thank you for seeing this PowerPoint all the way through to the end, and I'll catch you next time.